I just got finished talking about how this is part 3. We had checked into the hospital, had now been admitted into a room, and I just assumed we were going to be there a day or two to try to determine what exactly was wrong with my wife. During that evening, of course, I think I might have went and got something to eat and come back. Maybe went home for a brief moment and might have been gone 2 hours at the most. I got some meals, packed meals in a cooler, put in the trunk of my car. I changed my clothes and showered and was prepared to stay there through the night. After I got back, it was dark, and while sitting at my wife's bedside, my wife started talking about things that had happened 25 years ago. Talking about these things as if they had happened last night. One thing that she said that concerned me a lot, she asked how I enjoyed visiting her great-grandmother. Her great-grandmother had passed about 22 years prior to this date, and her asking me how I enjoyed that visit was a little strange because we hadn't talked about that visit for a while. She laughed about how her great-grandmother chuckled about me being a short person and really talked about it like it had just happened. So I asked her something along the lines of, oh, why are you asking me about that? And she said something that kind of made me think she might want to visit her again. And I said, well, we can't visit her again. She's like, well, why not? And I said, well, your great-grandmother has been passed for 22 years. So we entered into a short conversation about her great-grandmother passing, and she looked at me like she didn't believe it. She actually said, well, we were just with her yesterday. How can she already be passed today? Of course, that concerned me. And, being shaken, I might have even asked the nurse to come and just sat there and waited it out. Her ability to display strength and energy was great. She, however, didn't really express the ability to know where she was, what time it was, what was going on, or anything like that. She was looking out of the window at one moment. It was about 10:30, 11 at night, and talking as if it was 10 or 11 in the morning, asking me, was I about to have lunch and things like that. Of course, I just, patiently waited those things out. The next day was much of the same. She was on an IV. I had to leave and run an errand and missed the primary doctor that was assigned to us. And we just was going through running different tests, MRIs, EKGs, mammograms, and things like that. They did determine that her liver was damaged. They called in a liver specialist. They also called in a neurologist because of the confusion and the time gaps of her communication and conversations. Well, the neurologist came in and, real nice, calm guy, rather quiet, asked questions and I answered the best I could. The hospital was kind enough to let me stay in the room with my wife, so I did not have to leave through the night. And the second day, they gave her a roommate. So they informed me that I would have to go down and wait for her at the waiting area. And my wife, that second day, was fiddling around with the medical equipment, turning things off, walking around. She just seemed like she was pacing and confused about what was going on. And so I told the medical staff, that evening that if I was not going to be in the room with my wife, to have someone watch after her, because I didn't want her disturbing the other patient that was in the other bed. Well, they didn't want my wife disturbing the other patient, and they couldn't supply staff to watch her minute by minute. So they relocated us in another room and actually put us in a private room where I was able to stay again. So that night, we went to bed. She seemed to have all the strength and validity that she normally had, but she was very confused. Didn't really know what was going on. Wednesday morning, I had to run an errand or something. I missed the primary doctor again. Don't know how this is happening. And I returned shortly and was going through the day. And somewhere around 11 or 12 o'clock, my wife began to get some clarity, where she was talking about things that was going on today instead of bouncing around talking about things that had happened throughout our life, or making things up. She had somehow come to the conclusion that she was either in a hotel on vacation or living in the dorms of a college campus. She had come to the conclusion that I was staying in another room and we was somehow dating, even though we'd been married for 23 years. She talked about my daughter being away to college, but didn't seem to think my daughter was enjoying her time at college. And it was just a roller coaster of things. But this Wednesday, around lunchtime, she began to talk about things in their proper perspective. Wow, it came over me like a sigh of refreshment and relief. And I began to think that, hey, maybe whatever was wrong with my wife has subsided. And man, we're going to be out of this hospital today. We're going to be able to go back home and begin to live our lives like we had. I informed the nurse that my wife seemed to be better, and she said to wait for the doctor to come. A couple hours later, maybe 3 hours later, somewhere around 3 o'clock, my wife began acting confused again. Man, floored me. The 3 hours of clarity had me deceived and thinking we were in the clear. She was getting better. Now all of a sudden she's talking about being in another town 45 miles away and enjoying her vacation time and still being enrolled in college, and how weird it is dealing with people that live in the dorms of the college. That set me back. Man, I could have ran up and down the aisles of the hall screaming and yelling because I wasn't prepared for her to relapse that quick. The doctor showed up about 4 or 4:30, and he told me, it was a neurologist, he told me that he thought she had Wernicke's encephalopathy. He might as well have said a French word because it went in one ear, out the other. I couldn't grab hold to the word. I didn't understand it, but he told me that it was likely induced by alcohol abuse and that it was not a good thing and that hopefully she would continue to experience recovery. So we stayed another night at the hospital, and I was looking forward to meeting and talking with the general doctor that was assigned to my wife's case. The next morning, around 5:30 in the morning, the doctor arrived and entered the room and began to talk with us about, or talk with me mainly, about what was going on with my wife. encouraged her that she had to give up alcohol, that abuse had caused her problems. Didn't really say if we were in the clear, said that they had to continue to monitor her another day or so since she had a relapse, and explained to me that they were trying to purge her off of the addictiveness of alcohol, so when we left the hospital, she wouldn't have alcohol withdrawals. So, stayed in the hospital Thursday. No improvement. Thursday night seemed to have more clarity about what was going on a little bit. Friday morning, the main doctor came in and basically told me that our time was up. There was nothing else that could be done in the hospital, and that we would be discharged Friday afternoon, close to Friday evening, and that I needed to seriously make arrangements to get my wife post-care. Really need to make sure she didn't get back on alcohol because of the liver damage that was done, and what it had done to her mind. And he told me Thursday what the name of the condition they believed that she had, this Wernicke's encephalopathy, which again went in one ear, out the other. So Friday when he told me, I actually wrote it down so that I can try to do some research on it and hopefully get some plans of recovery. I met with the neurologist, scheduled a follow-up appointment with him. I also met with the doctor that was helping with her liver problem, and he encouraged me and let me know that the liver is probably the most, the best organ that we have in our body for bouncing back. And he felt confident that her liver would bounce back as long as she was able to stay away from alcohol. So I did all I could to do some research on alcohol rehab centers in our area and tried to make arrangements to get my wife admitted immediately into an alcohol rehab center. I did not have the funds to do that, but I did make an appointment with a center that I thought was a good option and that seemed like they may be willing to work with me on the financial situation that I was in. So we were checking out of the hospital. I talked to my daughter. My daughter was going to come down from college and spend a weekend with us, and I was going to immediately go to this rehab center to talk to them about trying to get my wife admitted within the next few days or the next week. So we're being discharged from the hospital, and I'll pick up from there here in a few moments.